BookTube, my name is Kate and this is my channel Chapter Kate. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. Yeah. So this book tag was created by Chammy and Earl Grey Books years ago. Yeah. So I will link the original in the description of this video. I wasn't initially planning to film this video, but here we are because I got a new shirt and wanted to wear it in a video. Here are the books that I read in the year. Come back here. It's just these little books here. I guess I should pose for the thumbnail here. Strike a pose. So it's these. It's just these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm going to be talking about these books as they roll away from me. Yes. Hit my ankle. Okay, there are 14 questions in this iteration of the tag. I think there may be multiple iterations of the tag. Why am I using that word so much? I don't know. So, number 1 is the best book that I've read so far in the year 2020. And that is obviously going to The Deep by Rivers Solomon. It might not be obviously to everyone because it's not like everyone reads my mind at all times. Or do they? Do they know that I am afraid of ears? So the reason that this is the coolest thing ever to have happened in a book is because several reasons. One, because the content of the book is amazing and impactful and awesome. But also because I predicted this would happen with my own brain. Because this book is based off of a song by... Why is Discord making noise? Stop making noise! This is based on a song by the experimental hip-hop group Clipping, which is comprised of Daveed Diggs, William Hudson, and Jonathan Snipes. And yes, I discovered them because Daveed Diggs was in Hamilton and I became obsessed with Hamilton, specifically him in Hamilton, and then I sought out everything he ever did, and then I found this group. So that happened, but they have a bunch of cool music. A lot of their music like tells a story, which I love. I love music that tells a story. It's my jam. Yes, so there's a song and it's called The Deep. And I was like, The Deep, obviously. But there's like a voice at the start of the song and it kind of explains the whole mythology behind this book. And it's basically like these mermaid creatures were born out of the wombs of pregnant African women that were thrown overboard on slave ships. So from the very start, it kind of sets you up for this really dark, abysmal sort of atmosphere. And just like every time I listened to it, I was like, I want this to be a story. Somebody write this into a story. Someone needs to do this. And then later, like last year at some point, someone said something about An Unkindness of Magicians having a sequel, and Unkindness of Magicians is my favorite book. So I got real excited, so I looked on Saga Press's website because both of these are under Saga Press. I actually like a lot of books under Saga Press for some reason. It's actually an imprint from Simon & Schuster. But I have so many books that I like under that imprint. So I was looking on their website for the Unkindness of Magicians sequel, and then I saw The Deep on here, and I was like, huh? And then I looked, and it said River Solomon, and then it said With and These People, and I was like, I did it with my brain. No, that's not how that works. I don't get to take credit for that. But it was still pretty cool because I was like, I knew that was going to happen. I'm so glad I did. And then the fact that it was written by River Solomon just kind of icing on the cake there, because I haven't read anything by them yet, but my friend, like, he raves about River Solomon all the time and An Unkindness of Ghosts. It is also an unkindness, just like my favorite book is An Unkindness, but it's a different unkindness. I need to get that book. Do I have it? This was a really long story to tell about this, but the coolest thing about this book is that there's this concept with memory. It's almost like collective amnesia. The main character is actually like a memory keeper. She's like the holder of the history. She's called the historian. She keeps all the memories. But with that, she also often kind of goes into this almost dissociative state where she's in the memory. She's living the memory. And from the origin of their species, you can tell it's going to be pretty dark and gritty and difficult memories to live through. And the idea of having that sort of dissociative state and those flashbacks I can relate to with PTSD because I have that. But obviously I can't relate to the concept of generational trauma, which is something that's discussed as a theme throughout this book. I do know something about generational trauma because I am in the mental health field and I've read up a lot on generational trauma. I know there's a lot of scientific backing to that. So it was awesome to see that in a book because I don't feel like a lot of literature covers that, at least not a lot of literature that gets mainstream attention. This was an awesome read and I enjoyed it, and I think everyone should read The Deep by River Solomon. But also I think everyone should listen to Clipping because they're an awesome group. They have a lot of great music that covers a variety of topics. And they use a lot of very interesting like techniques and sound samples and all that good stuff in their music. So they also have a cool horror sound, which I can't say. Horror. I can't say that word. I give up. Next question is the best sequel you've read so far in 2020. And did I read a sequel? Yes! Within those 12 books was one sequel, so... And that was Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. This was the best sequel because it was the only sequel. This one's Vengeful. But Vicious and Vengeful are both in, I guess, the villain's duology. I think that's what it's called. So they're both cover these beings called EOs. They're humans that basically faced a near-death experience and where they were kind of revived. And those individuals that were revived ended up coming back with some sort of ability. And usually that ability is somehow linked to their last thoughts and their last urges before they died. I'm not going to talk too much about the sequel because I don't want to ruin anything about the first book. But the first book has really big Frankenstein vibes for me. She says it was not intentional, but like, I've reread Frankenstein a couple times and there's so many things in there that just scream Frankenstein, besides the fact that the main character's name is Victor. But it's great. It's really awesome. No one's a good guy, though. There are no good people. They're all bad people. Some are bad people that the reader is going to look at as a bad person and see that they do bad things. And some are good people who also do bad things. So everyone does bad. Number 3 is new releases that you haven't read but you want to read from this year. What books even came out? I don't even know what books have come out this year. Every month gets worse. New releases. No, thank you. Ew. That one I have. And since this is question number 3, I'm going to mention 3 books. That is the reason. It's not because I'm bad at decisions. It's because it's question number 3. Number 1 is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Is that how you say Addie LaRue? Yes. It's by V.E. Schwab because V.E. Schwab is an auto-buy author for me. And that's honestly the only reason. I don't know what it's about. Okay, so this person is a chick named wait, is she? Yes, she's a woman. So there's this woman in France, 1714, was that right? Yes, I got that right. Her name was Addie LaRue. She basically makes a deal with this, I guess, a being of some sort to live forever. But the issue was that she does live forever, but she is forgotten by everyone that she meets. I'm guessing that's in general. They just forget her immediately. But then years pass and she lives this whole life, and then she meets a guy in a bookstore who remembers her name. It's so exciting. Also, I just have a thing for like memory. Like, I love books that have some sort of memory play in them. You know, like The Binding, The Deep, The Giver, like stuff that has some kind of memory aspect to it. Love it. So, the next one is The Empire of Gold, and it's by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the 3rd book in the... I'm really bad, like, at knowing, like, the name of a series or a trilogy if it's not, like, involved in the title. So I gotta Google it. So, the Daevabad trilogy, number 3. This is the 3rd in the Daevabad trilogy. The cool thing about this trilogy is it has Jinn, and I'm so excited to read mythology surrounding Jinn. So the main character in these books has sort of a gift for healing, and then she kind of meets a Jinn. They go to this fantasy city. There's all this stuff that goes on that I don't want to talk about because I need to reread the books. But also, I remember it being really awesome, and there was a lot of plot-driven aspects to it. I love plot-driven books. The problem with plot-driven books is that I only pay attention to the plot and not the character names. So, sorry about that. If you like to read books where there's a lot of tension between sort of a ruling upper class and then a community that is basically suffering at the hands of that upper class, I know I talk about books being escapism, but a lot of books are not. A lot of books are very relevant to what you're going through and what the world is going through. So that's something in that book that actually kind of can relate to, like, the here and now. But this book covers that sort of same dynamic. So this is the third of the trilogy. I read the first two. This one's already out, but I was waiting for it to come out in paperback because my other two are paperback, and I like the paperback cover better than the hardback cover. And then the third one is actually one that I actually have, so that's exciting because I actually can just go grab it. So. And that is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. N.K. Jemisin wrote the 5th season trilogy. N.K. Jemisin is an incredible world builder, and the magic system, everything was just really, really cool in that trilogy. I've only read the first book still though, so I gotta keep going. And it has representation for days. There's like black rep, there's a polyamorous relationship, there are various sexualities, there are various gender identities. There's a lot going on it's awesome to see, and it's just all very normalized in that book, in that setting. And I really do love it. So The City We Became is more of an urban fantasy though, whereas the 5th season is more of a high fantasy. This is more urban fantasy. And again, we also have another memory situation. The main character arrives in New York, gets off the train, doesn't know anything about himself, his name, his history. It is a man, right? He doesn't remember anything about himself. So it kind of has that dissociative fugue situation going on where just his whole past is gone, doesn't know what's going on. Again, love memory tropes, so I'm really here for it, and plus I love N.K. Jemisin's writing. The 5th season took me a while to read because it was such high fantasy, and with that, I kept having to rewind and like re-listen to things, so that way I didn't miss things, because I was always scared I was missing details. I usually wasn't, but I was always kind of like, I missed something, and so I had to re-listen, so. But I'm really excited to read this. Also, I have a really deep love for urban fantasy. I find that I like reading it a lot more because the world's already there. The magic is the mystery though. I really, really love high fantasy as well, but with urban fantasy there is a little bit more ease to the reading process, I guess. Number 4 is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I did this wrong because the first two that I mentioned already came out. Addie LaRue, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue actually comes out in the second half of the year, so we're just gonna scooch that one on down for that question. Yeah. Number 5 is the biggest disappointment. So the most disappointing read that I've read so far. I liked all of the books. None of them are really disappointing. They're all pretty much met my expectations. I guess the exception would be The Alchemist. I wasn't in love with The Alchemist, but I didn't dislike The Alchemist at all. Some of the reviews for this were like, I hate self-help books because it's all like allegorical. It's all metaphorical. It's all, I don't know, it's very symbolic, that's the word. It's very symbolic. It also kind of has a mishmash of sort of references from all the Abrahamic religions. That's interesting. But it's also about following the clues that are in your environment, which I thought that was kind of cool. So the main character is constantly following like clues and omens that his universe is giving him. So, you know, if like the wind blows one way, he might go that way, and just constantly he's working towards his destiny. So I like the idea of being hyper aware of clues in your environment, because I find myself, I'm very kind of intuitive, so I can tell when things are going to happen. I can read people really well because I just notice small changes in the environment. And that just comes with being hyper vigilant, which comes with being someone with trauma. I liked that aspect of him following those tiny clues. I don't like the idea of like a destiny in general, even though it's nice to kind of think, oh, this person has a destiny, this person has a purpose, which I do think we all have kind of a purpose. But the idea of destiny makes me feel very much like it's presenting this external locus of control. So you're just kind of saying everything else is in the universe's hands. I'm just here to follow where it goes. You know, I like the idea more of creating your own path. You may be destined to end up somewhere, but you have to find your own way there and make your way there. You can't just follow everything where the wind blows. And feel free to disagree with me. That's just my thoughts on it at the moment. I'm sure they'll change in a couple of weeks. That's what happens. Boop. Number 6 was the biggest surprise. So I'm guessing this is one that kind of surpassed your expectations. I think maybe the biggest surprise would be The Bells by Danielle Clayton. When this first came out, I wasn't interested because I looked at the cover and I immediately assumed it was a contemporary book because of all this, like the pink and whatnot. And that was on me. That was a stupid kind of generalization. I just saw pink and I saw flowers and I was like, ooh, romance or contemporary or something like that. But then I saw Danielle Clayton on a panel at Read Up Greenville. It's like a small book festival that occurred a couple years ago that I went to in my city. And she talked about it, and I immediately was like, oh, that's fantasy? I want to read it then. Sweet, let's get it. So I bought it, and I really, really, really enjoyed this book. So in this book, there's a world where everyone's sort of born gray and nasty, just kind of gross looking. And then there are these people called the Bells, and all of them can kind of actually make you change all your visual, features and physical appearance. They can change you, and I think that's really, really cool. So that's neat. But the thing is, they're all kind of competing. Basically, they all really want to get chosen as the queen's favorite, and everyone else will be placed in specific houses. The main character really wants to be the favorite, but then it turns out that those positions are not all like they're cracked up to be, and there's a lot of other kind of dark things and intrigue going on here. But if you kind of like certain vibes in your book, this vibe reminded me a lot of Girls of Paper and Fire. The main character is not in like a sapphic romance or anything, but it has that kind of vibe for me. Like, I guess because a group of girls are training to be a certain thing, and then it's scary and bad and all that good stuff. I think that's what kind of made me feel that way, but it does have a similar vibe to that. The sequel's already out. I need to read it. I think it's called The Everlasting Rose. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I need to go buy it. The next one is Your Newest Fictional Crush. I don't really have those. So, yeah, I don't have those, so I'm gonna skip that one. Number 9 is Your Newest Favorite Character. This one's a little bit easier for me to name. My favorite new character is Ash from The Shadow of What Was Lost. Yes, by James Islington. So Ash is one of 3 main characters in these books. The other are Weir and Caden. No, Davian. Oh my gosh, Caden's another character. So the main 3 characters are Davian, Weir, and Ash. Fantasy, there's so many people. It's really cool world building, really cool plot. Ash is an awesome character because she is just, she's so underestimated. I love underestimating people that just like go and kick your butt, she's great, and she's intelligent, and she's kind, but she's also like doesn't let people walk all over her, which I love. And she's just go hard or go home for her friends and for the people that she cares about, and for the people that are treated like crap because of society. I love this book. And there's a sequel. I almost said a trequel. Is there a third? I don't know if there's a third or not, but I know that there's a second one, and the second one is an echo of things to come. So I have that one. It's over there too. But it was honestly a quick read. It took me way too long. It shouldn't have taken me that long, but it was a quick read. I just am slow, and I was also reading it while moving into a new home in the middle of a pandemic. So while still working full time, there's a lot there, but I really, really enjoyed the book. It was great. There's so much going on though. So like if you like high fantasy, you might think this is not high fantasy enough if you like super high fantasy. But if you're scared to read high fantasy and you're more of like maybe an urban fantasy or fabulism kind of person, you might still be able to kind of enjoy this book. Either way, you should try it out. Number 10 is Book That Made You Cry. I don't really cry that often for books. I think the only book I ever cried about was Where the Red Fern Grows. And I think I was just having a real bad day. I think the one that may have come the closest was On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. And I think the only reason this one made me very emotional is because I listened to it and the narrator was just real good. I was emotional about it. This is an extremely powerful story. It's about a young girl. What is her name? I'm so bad at names. The main character's name is Bree. She wants to be a rapper. She's really good at it. She goes to these, freestyle battles and stuff like that. And she finally gets a chance to actually record. And it goes moderately viral in her, hometown. She also goes to one of those schools where there's like security guards at the door and metal detectors and whatnot like that. And she faces racism within her own school, which is not uncommon. But she does kind of receive that from the guards that are there to protect her. And so her music ends up reflecting her experiences. But she uses a lot of references to like gangs and things like that, which are very prevalent in her neighborhood and where she lives. So there's a lot of trouble with that. And also just like the family aspect. Her mother's badass, and her mother's willing to fight for her and believe her in front of her school, even though her and her mother might not have like the most smooth relationship. It's a really, really good story. Number 11 is A Book That Made You Happy. Okay, I'm gonna say 2, and those are Goose Girl by Shannon Hale and it's manga. It's backwards. And The Girl from the Other Side. This one says Story and Art by Nagabe. So these both made me really happy. Goose Girl made me happy because this was actually my introduction into fantasy when I was in middle school. Besides like the Chronicles of Narnia, I don't remember which one I read first. But this was like really what I remember being my introduction to fantasy. Both this and the Chronicles of Narnia are very, they're darker than you would expect from kids' books. And that showed me that fairy tales can also be like super full of action. And I loved action because that's all I would watch with my dad, is really, really gory action movies that I probably shouldn't have been watching when I was that young, but yes. But the Goose Girl is about this girl who talks to geese. The main character can talk to birds, and also sometimes her horse, but also maybe the wind, I don't know. But anyway, she's the crown princess of a kingdom, but then she kind of gets passed over, and she gets promised to marry this prince in a far-off kingdom, and then a bunch of stuff happens and goes very, very wrong. But because it's a fairy tale, things go very, very right in the end. And I say that like all fairy tales are happy. Most fairy tales are terrible, but this one ends happy and I like it a lot. It's just comforting. It's a comfort read to me. And then with The Girl from the Other Side, this is a manga, and it's just really cute because there's sort of this dichotomy. There's this little girl and she's just, you know, kind of oblivious to anything bad in the world. And then there's this being who is very serious and looks very intimidating, but is actually a very caring, nurturing being. And there's thought to be this kind of disease, and these things, if they touch you, you become one of them. So they're not allowed to touch. But where the little girl is from, they've basically abandoned her and thinking that she's become one of them, and it's a whole thing. But it's just a really cute dichotomy because she's so young and naive and happy, and this being is not. They're very serious and they're aware of the world and the state of things. So I like it. I have the first 3. I think I've only read this one though. Number 12 is the most beautiful book that you have bought this year. Whoa, I'm close to the camera. Okay. I think I'm going to go with this edition of Wuthering Heights. I got it on my birthday because I went to a bunch of stores and I saw it and I was like, well, that's neat. But yeah, no, look at this. It just has like all these little, I guess they're cherry blossoms. I'm not really sure. But also the pages have like a gold leaf situation, and they're super thick. The pages are super thick, and it's super small. And I just like the way the texture, the way it feels and things like that. So it's not only beautiful to look at, but the sensory experience I enjoy. So, which is funny because I usually don't really like pink. I hate pink, but I like Gothic literature, so I was like, that's nice. So. And then number 13 is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I have a video about 5 books that I want to read. There's a ton that I want to read by the end of the year though. Ooh. I really want to read Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I already mentioned The City We Became, which I want to finish by the end of the year. I want to read Middle Game by Shannon McGuire. I want to read The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I want to read Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi, and it's the sequel to Children of Blood and Bone. I want to read A Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I want to read Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. I want to read I'm Telling the Truth But I'm Lying by Bassey Epke. I can't remember anything. I have them on a paper somewhere, but I can't really remember. I'm bad at that. But there's also a lot of graphic novels and comic books I want to read, so I mostly just kind of read whatever. This just rolled over my toe. I mostly kind of just read whatever I feel like in the moment too. And then number 14 is your favorite book community member. All of them? That's hard to say because so many of the book community people have impacted my life in such a positive way. So that is really, really difficult to say. There's so many. Sarah from Novel Serendipity and Leah from Real the World Leah Jane are my family. I talk to them almost daily. They're in my life, you know, to stay. Cindy from Read with Cindy is such a great presence in the community and has been since she got here. Jessie from Bow Ties and Books is incredibly inspiring. They do so many great things for the community, and they have a way of basically calling the community to action that I haven't seen a lot of people be able to do. Brody from A2 Brody, they just make my life better. Them and their pastel aesthetic, and I like their taste in books a lot too. And Nori from Reading with Nori doing the Kaboomathon with me. The other people that I haven't mentioned yet that did Monster-a-thon with me. Noria from Noria Reads, Celia from That Disney Chick.
So listening back, it definitely sounds like I'm saying Celia and not Cecilia, so it is Cecilia, not just Celia. Yes, that's all.
People that did Valentine's with me, which I have so many people that do that readathon with me because there's so many different aspects to it. But all of them, Princess from Castle Library, she started it with us. She helped us kind of start that and get it off the ground. I also forgot to mention Justin from Ghost Reader. You know what you did. Mostly the Christmas War, honestly, that just the Christmas War of 2018, which will never be forgotten. There are just a lot of people in the community that have done so much for me and have just been lights in my life that I appreciate just immeasurably. So before I get emotional, I'm gonna end this video there. I tag everybody. I don't like tagging individuals because it makes them feel pressured. My camera keeps turning off because it says the card is full, which honestly, I just need a new card, but my dog ate my other one. It's fine. But that is all for this video. If you want to do this tag, please do it. It's a great kind of way to be like, we're in the middle here. Time to get my butt in gear. I've only read 12 books out of 100. It's not gonna happen. We all know that, but it's okay. If you want to do this tag, please do it. I tag you. That is all for this video. Please tell me how many books you've read this year. Is it more than 12? Is it less than 12? Is it 12? If it is, make me feel better, please. That's all for this video. If you would like more of this junk, please subscribe below. Bye!
Tripping over shadows and I'm drowning.